Social media is full of supposedly educational content when it comes to mental health and self-care. But have you ever wondered how much of what you come across online is harmful misinformation? It is normal and healthy to seek out answers regarding your own mental health or that of a loved one. However, it is counterproductive to rely on inaccurate sources you see online, such as TikTok posts or non-clinical articles regarding mental health, especially when it comes to autism. My name is Grace Connor, and I was diagnosed with autism at 5 years old. I have been receiving clinical therapy for as long as I can remember, as well as early intervention and speech therapies. It is due to these treatments, along with learning to manage my behavior symptoms and developing healthy coping mechanisms, that I have the ability to advocate for myself and have this conversation regarding autism spectrum disorder with the public. Because of the fact that I am autistic and have received proper therapy, I believe that I am qualified to spread awareness regarding my own experience as well as my perspective on this topic. Autism is not something we can fully be educated on without professional oversight, and dismissing clinical perspectives is detrimental for all autistic individuals, with or without a proper diagnosis. There are a multitude of reasons why we as individuals are not qualified to diagnose any person, including ourselves, without proper credentials. We do not have the education of which is necessary to understand what is and is not misinformation regarding autism, and the average person on social media does not have the insight on autism that a professional clinician would, as well as the fact that claiming to be autistic without proper diagnosis is appropriating a marginalized group of which they may or may not be a part of unintentionally or intentionally. There are also several mental health and neurological disorders that have many overlapping symptoms, and solely relying on self-diagnosis could prevent those seeking help from receiving proper diagnosis. While many people who self-diagnose have done research on autism, they simply do not have the professional insight required to comprehend the proper criteria, as well as which sources are unreliable. Most social media posts are riddled with misinformation due to the fact that the average person on social media does not have the insight on autism that a professional clinician would. According to an article published by the National Institute of Health in affiliation with the AG Autism Institute of Drexel University, a thorough examination of the top 133 videos providing informational content of autism was conducted. It was concluded that only 27% of the videos were classified as accurate, whereas 41% were classified as inaccurate and 32% as overgeneralized, regardless of the source in question on TikTok. These findings are evident that the overwhelming majority of social media posts regarding autism are baseless misinformation. Some individuals who claim to be autistic without proper diagnosis may have done more extensive research beyond social media. However, most of these people are likely unable to identify mis or inaccurate media regarding autism, whereas a licensed neurologist would be able to. It is not only willfully ignorant to ignore the informed medical perspective, it is harmful to everyone involved and the autistic community as a whole. In addition to the fact that the average person does not have the insight of a professional, it must also be considered that identifying with a disability that you may or may not have is disrespectful to those who deal with marginalization on a daily basis due to their autism spectrum disorder diagnosis and symptoms. Therefore, by claiming to have autism without a diagnosis, people are appropriating a marginalized group of which they may not be a part of intentionally or unintentionally, which is an act of ableism. According to an article by the special needs-oriented nonprofit Brainwave, if autism is perceived as a label that anyone can adopt without medical verification, there is a risk of reduced support for those genuinely affected, especially since this may lead to misconceptions and stereotypes becoming more entrenched in society as a whole. The risk of autism becoming trivialized is a great concern. However, the fact that a majority of these individuals do not experience the discrimination that people who are diagnosed with ASD face on a daily basis, such as being unable to serve in the military or enter certain fields, etc., means it is not their place to speak for our community. I personally support the right of self-suspecting people to advocate for their own experiences. However, this does not apply to autism or the community as a whole. It must also be considered that, as well as self-diagnosis potentially leading to an increase in misinformation regarding autism, it could not only harm autistic people who are diagnosed, but self-diagnosed people as well, regardless of whether or not they have autism, as they could have another condition with similarities and not receive help due to confusion. There are many conditions with overlapping symptoms, and self-diagnosis could prevent those seeking help from potentially receiving proper diagnosis. According to an article published by the Cleveland Clinic, medical providers are trained to differentiate between diagnoses with overlapping symptoms, and while they may appear to have symptoms of ASD, there are other diagnoses to consider as well. And not seeking professional assessment could lead to people masking symptoms of a serious condition or delaying needed medical treatment. Basically, the best case scenario is that you figure out that you have autism and receive proper therapy and treatment if you choose to get tested. The worst case scenario is that you have a far more severe mental illness that goes untreated due to refusal or a lack of ability to get tested. That being said, it is worse to convince yourself it is a different condition than to delay treatment altogether, due to the fact that it makes people develop preconceived ideas about their mental health paired with previous mentioned misinformation. Factors such as delaying treatment, online misinformation, shaping others' perceptions of autism, and disregard for people with diagnosed autism is a recipe for disaster, not only for them, but self-diagnosed individuals as well. Without the proper experience and insight of a medical professional, we do not have any credibility to diagnose on our own behalf or the behalf of other people. And doing so is a great risk to one's mental health, autistic or not. Next time you go on social media and see mental health awareness posts, please do keep in mind that not all information you consume online is reliable. It is always best to take a step back and recognize that you need to discuss these issues with a clinician. Thank you. Have a nice day.